I fell in love with a man, and my life turned upside down. Sometimes we get hit so hard in life that we have a hard time getting back up. Hi, I am Brenda. I am 30 years old. I have two children. But before continuing my story, I invite you to subscribe and above all, to hit on the notifications bell so that you won't miss on any future stories. When I was 18, I met Freddie. He was working as a technician in an electrical company. We fell in love, and our romance was just like a novella. Afterwards, we moved in together. After 2 years of living together, I became pregnant. Unfortunately, from the day I broke the news to him, everything changed. Freddie became a completely different person. He lost interest in me. He always came home late and drunk. He had several girlfriends and sometimes he would bring them home. And when I would ask for an explanation, I would get a good thrashing. Sometimes he would be away from home for days without even letting me know where he was. I was so lonely, neglected and abandoned by my man. I'd lost my taste for life. I cried night and day. I felt like I was going through hell. One evening, when I was at my wit's end, I decided to take a walk and to think about my life and the child I was carrying. I was already 7 months pregnant, but still I had little or nothing for my unborn child. I even considered going back home to my parents, but I was far too ashamed to do that. I was sitting in a public gathering with tears flushing down my eyes. I was so desperate. All I had left were tears to cry. Just then a young man came and sat beside me. "Good afternoon, madam. Why are you crying? What's the matter?" I looked at him and the first thing I could say was, "Get lost. I don't want to hurt you. I just want to help you. I'm sorry if I was rude. I've just been so wounded lately." "Oh, I see. Could you spare a few minutes?" I spent hours and hours chatting with this young man. He was so funny I didn't even notice the time pass. It had been such a long time since I had a good time. We exchanged numbers, and from that day on, we maintained a purely friendly relationship. Eric was his name. He was such a sweetheart. He gave me a zest for life, and I had a new lease in life. He even took care of me. Oh yes, Eric was immeasurably kind. Freddie had left me to myself, and at that moment, Eric became the only reason for my leaving. He took full responsibility for my child and I. He planned my baby's future as if it were his own. Thus, Freddie's horrible treatment meant nothing to me at all, because I was so happy with Freddie. The day my pregnancy was due, I was home alone as usual. Not knowing what to do, I called Freddie, and he came quickly with his car and took me to the hospital. The next day, I gave birth to a baby boy. Eric's joy was so overwhelming that the midwives thought he was the father. I called my parents and told them the good news. Freddie joined me 2 days later. I didn't even know where he had heard the news from. He looked so confused when he saw that the child lacked nothing. "Hey, my darling, what shall we call our child? You should have called me, my darling. Why didn't you tell me you were in the hospital?" I was so surprised to hear it. "Please, Freddie, don't play dumb. You are never there, and even when I call you, you don't pick up." I wasn't even interested to hear what he had to say. He was showing a false impression of himself. I knew for a fact that he wasn't interested in the child at all. He was just pretending in front of others. In any case, I no longer had feelings for him anymore. As a matter of fact, I never, ever wanted to see him again. After some time in the hospital, I went home to my parents. Since Freddie and I lived in a small studio, there wouldn't be enough room for the baby. Besides, I didn't want him anymore. I had feelings for my Eric. I loved him deeply, but I preferred to keep it a secret. At my parents' house, I was well cared for, and so was my baby. Freddie didn't even drop by to see his own child. On the other hand, Eric was there all the time. Since Freddie no longer cared about me, I decided to go out with Eric. So when he proposed, I didn't hesitate to say yes. We began our romance, and as soon as my son was a year old, I moved in with him. After 2 years, I got pregnant again, but this time I was happy as a pregnant woman. Eric was truly the man of my dreams. I loved him so much, and he loved me too. One evening, as I was preparing dinner for my little family, I received a call from Freddie. I know that you're living with another man, but I want you to know that you will never be happy. As soon as I got this message, I began trembling. I trembled as though I had seen a ghost. I dropped the plate in my hand. Hearing this noise, Eric stood up. Honey, what's wrong? What's happening to you? I was so scared because I knew what Freddie was capable of. I just got a call from Freddie. He threatened me. He told me he knows I'm in a relationship with another man, and he told me that I will never be happy. Calm down, sweetie. You've got nothing to worry about. Everything will be fine, I promise. Eric, you don't know what he's capable of. He can be very dangerous, you know. Please don't worry. Don't get yourself into such a state. Think about our baby. Okay, sweetheart. After that call from Freddie, I didn't hear anything from him again until one evening he turned up at Eric's house, accompanied by a gang of 3 thugs. When I opened the door, he stomped in and grabbed Eric. Then Freddie pulled out a knife and stabbed him several times in the stomach. I was so terrified, and despite all my screams, he still wouldn't stop until Eric was in the bloodbath. He got up, took our son, and disappeared with his gang. I screamed out my lungs. Then I was finally helped by one of our neighbors. He helped me get Eric to the hospital. As soon as he arrived, he was quickly taken to the emergency unit. Sitting in the waiting room, I called my parents to tell them about what Freddie had done. And I told them that my son had been kidnapped. My mother promised to meet me at the hospital. Meanwhile, my father put up an APB for my son. I didn't understand what was going on. Why was Freddie so mean? What did I ever do to him? I hadn't done anything to him. He had chosen to abandon me. I cried so hard. I was so inconsolable. Why did I ever meet such a monster? He wanted to take Eric's life. If he dies, I don't know what I'll do. I will never be able to bear it. After a few hours, my mother arrived. Mom, Eric's in bad shape. He might even die. Calm down, my daughter. Don't say such things. He's not going to die. Let's pray he lives. Has your dad been here? Yes, he has gone to the police station to lodge a complaint against Freddie and at the same time to put up an APB to find my son. My God, where could he have taken my son? Mom, where is my child? I spent weeks and weeks in anguish and fear. Fear of losing Eric and fear of not finding my son ever again. Fortunately, my mother was there to console me and to comfort me. After a few weeks in the hospital, Eric recovered from his injuries. He was starting to feel better and he could even talk and eat. As for my son, we still hadn't found him. Neither was Freddie. They were both nowhere to be found.